Morning Coffee Live, talking about trucking, the spot market, and anything else your cold heart desires. But first, we're going to have an intro that annoys everybody and gives me time to get my coffee going, get your coffee going, and we'll talk about the trucking. So stay tuned. About a minute, you'll be all right. Okay. Yes. Good morning. It feels good to finally, be live. It's been an interesting couple of weeks. Sorry, it's been a minute. Between the busyness of the actual job that I really get paid for, plus the new doggy, which is down here at my feet. These things are known as Velcro dogs. He is proving that point. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I do these weird things every now and then called recorded. I think recorded videos, and I showed a couple with the dog that we got thanks to Shannon Thomas, and and that's been interesting. The cats hate me now, and they have not been out of the one section of the house for the whole time. And but yeah, this new dog, he is he's definitely a handful, but he's doing pretty good. So, anyways, a lot going on. It's the end of the second quarter, hence the title of the video, and hopefully we can stay live. I've been running this issue where I'm running at the last minute with these trucks on Book and Freight, and I want to discuss a couple of things. We're going to go over the email that CDN generously shares with me, and DIY and a couple others about the spot market. And one of my favorite brokers / shippers is going to be closed next week because of inventory. So there's some inventory going on in the second quarter. So there's going to be a mad push. And however, there is some rate suffocating going on in some parts. It depends on where you're going, and you can really see the evidence of the computers making decisions instead of live people. And I have a theory about that. Just a theory, since look, the world is ate up with theories, right? There's a lot of fake propaganda videos from each side of different multiple wars and other things. So we're not going to get political, but just say that You can't believe everything you say. Can't believe everything you see, or people say that you see, right? So we're going to take a look at the 123 low board, and we'll also take a look at DAT volumes. And oops, I got my volume up on my phone. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what's happening, because this week has been interesting so far, and a lot of it has been computer related issues. So all right. So anyways, let's get on with it. Let's read some comments real quick, and then we'll get started on some news stuff, right? Boulder Woods, good morning. Thank you for all right. Thank you for your presence, man. I really enjoy our friendship. I wish you could come to Springfield and hang out for a minute. Smitty Trucking, good morning. Boulder Woods says, let's get it. My name is Nobody. Good morning. Old school, new school. Late start for me this morning. Shannon Thomas Trucking. Woohoo! Let's go. Shannon's look at her avatar. Shannon's ate up with this AI thing. She's got the AI overlords telling her how to eat and stuff now. So it's interesting to watch her AI transformation. As you can see, look, she's got evidence of it. So I am afraid to give AI my image, because it might, who knows what AI is doing with that image, right? Next thing you know, there's some AI chatbot that looks like me, if you're lonely or something. So you got to be careful with that. Flatbed Trucker, good morning. DIY, come on. Orion's awesome because he has an awesome name that makes me think of an awesome Metallica song. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, let's say you're one of these people that I hate that thrash stuff because of the vocals. Well, go find the song Orion by Metallica. And there are no vocals. It's like one of the best pieces that they've done, right? DIY, his hearing's off. I said doggy, not donkey. Shannon says, the AI overlord says, collagen, butter, olive oil, and a pinch of salt in my coffee this morning. Good deal. Now, are you doing true olive oil? Not that fake stuff. Always butter, right? Yeah, well, I wish we can get a donkey. Yes, he would have trouble fitting in the house. Schmitty says, I do salted butter and monk fruit sweetener in my coffee. Quick hit, good morning. Large language model, says Orion. What a random comment. All right, so let's get to the news stuff. I don't expect my numbers to be very good today because I have not been live, and YouTube algorithm goes, oh yeah, this dude, he talks out of his, what, every now and then. Let's give him some, whatever. In the last two videos I did were dog videos, so I'm all over the place with my stuff, right? Oh, I was looking for my coffee, but we got our coffee going. It's been super hot in my area, as is probably most of the country right now. Mrs. A says, everyone around me loving on the AI. Meanwhile, I'm ready for the Bootlarian Jihad Dune reference for all my fellow nerds. Single source Italian olive oil. Good deal. AI equals large language model. Its true name. Oh, I did not know that. Ghost Driver, good morning. All right, so let's see. Let's share the screen, see if I remember how to do this still. There we go. Hit allow. Dying Breed, what's up? What's up, Next Gen? You always be Next Gen in my book. How's it going, man? Thank you for you being here and showing your support, even though you have nothing to do with the spot market. I've got good friends like that. And Dying Breed is kind of a spiritual leader for me. So he's a good dude. He's a good dude. All right. Let's see. Let's go to market conditions. All right. There's a lot of data this week because it is the end of the second quarter. And so there's a push. So we'll see what that's doing to volumes. I'm not going to sit there like, well, this is going to do this to the volumes and no. I'm not doing that because I don't know anything other than what's in front of my face. I had a nice discussion with our new CH Robinson rep. That's the thing. You develop a relationship with the broker or with the rep, and then all of a sudden, boom, that person's gone. You're like, what am I going to do? But then if you use the same skill sets, you acquire a new relationship. And there's been some argument. Do you create a relationship with brokers? And a lot of people will say no because, well, they'll just leave you in a heartbeat. They just want the lowest rate. They don't care about your interest, blah, 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 blah. And to a certain extent, that's true. Don't put more into it than what you thought, right? Or more thought into it. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Here's what I'm trying to say. You can pal around with the broker, but it's not like you're going to invite them over for dinner. It's not like they have a job and a business to run as well, right? Just like if you're okay, hey man, we're cool. I'm going to do these loads for you, $1,000 a day, blah blah blah, right? And we're doing good, right? And we do this for 2 years. We got an understanding. There's a give and take on each end. One day I'll do it for 900 because the next time you're going to let me do it for 1100. That kind of thing. But then their AI overlords or their bosses sit there and say, "Hey, we got to get this down to 800 now. We got to get this down to 700 now." And pretty soon, what happens? You go, "Well, I can't do that for 700 because that's unsustainable for me. I got to move on." So we do the same thing. And the brokers understand that, or they should understand that. Now, the other thing that I was reminded of this morning, thanks to Mother Trucker, is that I almost said AI again. The English proficiency rule goes into effect today, hardcore. And so, according to Mother Trucker's numbers, that might add up to about 350,000 drivers. Now, something that was interesting, instead of going off a load board, I've been having to go off brokers' load boards. Because here's the thing, there's a lot of brokers I don't recognize on DAT. And I'm checking credit. They're not posting times or anything. And so it becomes more difficult when I need something specific, right? So, and there are so many times where I email the broker and they're like, yeah, this picks up at 11 o'clock tonight and delivers 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. And not wanting to put my driver in that, there's a situation where if that had just been in the comments, I would not have wasted my time or wasted the broker's time. And then I had another one that was one of these, 750 mile, in one shift type loads. And the guy used that line, well, we run these all the time. I don't know what your problem is. And so instead of arguing with them, instead of trying to educate them on the hours of service, obviously if that's absolutely true, they're using carriers that like to unplug the ELD or, super solo teams, not a one and done carrier. And then a lot of the lines, well, we do this for this rate all the time. Okay, then get that person to do it. And, and there was a meme out there where I think Tex Crowley, he posted it, where it was a screenshot where, hey, we have a carrier that does this all the time for this rate. And the guy's like, well, get that guy. He's like, he went out of business. And that's the thing is sometimes you have carriers that will be like, hey, I'll do this all day and every day, regardless of what rate you're throwing at me. Next thing you know, they're lowering the rate, lowering the rate, lowering the rate. And then next thing you know, it's unsustainable. And before they kind of figure it out, because nobody does their numbers, they realize that they've gone out of business. And so there's still companies going out of business. There's still carriers struggling. And fuel did jump up this week, but they're calling that last Iranian smack, in Qatar, however you say that, as a de-escalation, because they had to like show something, to the whole vengeance thing or whatever. But and look, the news is it's such a weird world we live in, where the news is all over the place. You don't know what's real anymore. And one person says that we successfully did this, and then the other person says no, that was a lie. And then you have propaganda on two sides that are trying to upend the other sides, and then you got third parties that are trying to just watch it all burn. And the next thing you know, you don't know what's real or not. But you see the news, the people watching the news reacting. You see the stock market reacting. You see the oil prices reacting. And so instead of letting it overwhelm you, you just have to just what's in front of your face. And that's kind of what the last couple of weeks has been for me. There's one day where I noticed that short haul was through the roof, but long haul was horrible. And then there's certain pockets, and everybody, C.H. Robinson, RXO, RTS, Nolan, Echo, Arrive, all these brokers that have their own load boards, their starting rates are really low, 20% lower than what the standard used to be. I'm not just talking the 30-day. I'm talking like $1,500 loads going for $800. And and they're only as good as their computer systems. They're only as good as the AI will let them, because they also follow they're like Shannon. They also follow the AI overlords. And so when they see a load going from Ohio to North Carolina, they know that they can keep the rate down, because the computers will say, well, the rates are up in North Carolina. It's whack-a-mole on a whole different level. And so if you run the same lane in the same area every single day, if that's not in the hot pocket, you're seeing a diminished rate. Whereas if you're the kind of person that will follow the rates, that's great, but there's going to be one time that you're going to be in a backhaul market. It's getting harder to avoid a backhaul market at some point. And the normal lanes are all over the place, and like there are some market tools that will show you by market, not by state. So like Missouri, we'll take Texas. We'll use Texas as an example. Laredo's hot at one point, but not Dallas. You get a better rate out of Laredo or Houston, but not Dallas area. Illinois, you might get a good rate out of Chicago, but not in Southern Illinois. Missouri, St. Louis might be good on Monday. Kansas City's never good on a Thursday. And Springfield Joplin area is, it depends on what Arkansas is doing. It depends on what Oklahoma's doing. So, I mean, just analyzing these things, it can rack your head. And so sometimes you just got to put your nose to the grind, find the best thing. And, and I've got literally 18 tabs open. I've got all the click and book online stuff, because they're not posting on the load boards. When was the last time you saw C.H. Robinson on DAT? Probably not very often. Same thing with now RXO RXO and RTS and Arrive still post on the dashboard, and so a lot of times I'll get on the dashboard, I see one of their loads, I'll go to their tab to see what the details are, like the times, the customers, locations, what are the multiple stops. And the other thing I'm dealing with this week is, or the last couple of weeks, is the transit times being all jacked up. Now, Juneteenth did screw up a few things, and that seemed to be a difficult day for me as far as booking freight and getting answers from brokers. And I've told this to CDN many times that he's kind of an anomaly when it comes to brokers, even his own brokerage. And so, and they're stressed out. The customers are really trying to keep the rates low so they don't get reamed with the costs. And so you're finding all these multiple things. And so sometimes you just gotta move, right? You just gotta move. You gotta do this. You can't dwell on things. And I acquired a couple of new trucks in the last couple of weeks as well, as far as my dispatch goes. And they each have different needs. And so trying to cater to the needs of the truck and the driver, and then the external circumstances that I have no control over, such as bad shippers, bad receivers, truck breakdowns, and things of that nature. And then getting with the market. There's a lot going on in my world. It may seem like I'm just sitting at home doing nothing, and then on top of that, I'm putting in rate cons, doing some operations, helping some drivers with their emails, for the whole company, which that could be a challenge in and of itself, but I can see what everybody's doing. Give me a second here. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks. And we predicted by mid-year in 2025 that rates would start to come up. Well, just when I think it starts to happen, the computers are driving it back down. So and then there's shenanigans. There's one click and go type, brokerage that has their own load board that it'll say, quote, $800. And so you put $950. It says, quote, the counter's at 800. And if you don't take that counter, you don't even have the ability to book it anymore unless you restart the whole process. Meanwhile, the load used to go for 1,200. I'm seeing a lot of that. There was one broker that every time I put a bid in, the individual would send me an email. I know it's below market rate, but it's going for X amount. Like no negotiation whatsoever. They're taking negotiating out. They're taking the art of negotiating out. And that's what's designed to do. Take it or leave it. And so it's been an adjustment for me, and it's been an adjustment for the drivers. And that's something that's our new reality. It is harder and harder to run. Like if you're a one truck operation, your best bet is to get 2 or 3 brokers under your belt and create a lane of customers. Like work the same loads. That's essentially what I did in my truck for the most part when I could. I was not one to chase the rates all over the place. I stayed in certain lanes. There was 3 markets that I primarily ran: Ohio, Missouri, Georgia, and Texas. I guess that's 4. But I generally stayed in those areas. I didn't jump up to North Dakota. I didn't jump into Pennsylvania. I didn't jump to, that one good load to Vegas. I didn't do any of that. There are some drivers on my table that like to do that. And there are drivers that want to stay in certain lanes. They want to run a certain area, which is fine. And I try to make that work. But when you limit yourself, you're at the mercy of of whatever that market is doing, such as the Midwest. Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, and Wisconsin have been slow. And so in Michigan too, and they've been kind of harder to get good rates coming out in the van. I'm not sure what it's doing in reefer. The Southeast is still doing well, but they're catching on, so they're not paying as much to go down there out of the Midwest. And so what I try to do is look at what the other drivers are doing, look at what my drivers want to do, and see if I can't place them in an area where you're making equal money, both 2 or 3 different directions, in your circle, in your triangle, or your back and forth. And then depending on where the driver lives, you might have to go out, bounce around, and then go back home. Either way, you're like, if you live in Florida, you're going to take a hit one direction. If you live in Arizona, same thing. If you live in California, same thing. And so trying to calculate all that, trying to get that going, it can be a challenge. If you're a one truck operation, get those relationships going. Find the brokers that will keep you busy. And you'll be good to go. So let's go back to comments here. We need a Dale Summers replacement. Rest in peace. No one out there like he was. That is true. Mr. Charles, good morning. Congratulations on your new life. Ryan says Grok's amazing AI. She gets salty with me. Bull of Woods, Grok will be interesting with baby oil. Weird. Sterling, good morning. I plundered the like button. Thank you. Is Coyote still in business, or did that trash broker finally implode? RXO bought him out, and they finally closed their digital platform, I think, last month. So, have you seen the Sasquatch trucker vids on the Facebooks? Yeah, I'm having to do a fast from Facebook again because I was just getting too ate up on those reels. I make fun of people that get addicted to TikToks, and I'm just as bad with the Facebook and Instagram reels. So I've got to get away from that. So I put a 10-minute timer on my phone again on the Facebook, so I can concentrate on what I need to do. Too much distraction, too much noise, and with the fake AI videos of missile attacks and propaganda from two sides of a war, saying we're kicking butt. It's like Fahrenheit 451 playing out before our very lives. You're right. Flatbed trucker TikTok is the devil. That's true. All right. So right over here, we have the overall market. We're not quite in the loose category yet. We're still in the soft, but van is not as low as it has been, but it's better. Reefers in the loose. And flatbed, though, flatbed is out of the neutral. So flatbed has slowed down a little bit, looks like. Which is interesting. Now, you take these charts with a grain of salt, because your reality may not be this reality. These are just trends that I look at. I'm not looking at the actual numbers. I'm not sitting there like, oh, if I'm not getting X amount per mile like this chart says, then I'm a loser, or I'm getting way better than this, so these numbers are stupid. No, it all, there's so many factors that are in these numbers. I'm looking for upward trends. Now here it's showing van in the upward trend. I'm seeing that in some of the short haul rates, but not in the long haul rates, except for going into Washington, going into Oregon. Those rates are up. Even California rates are coming up to go into there. Why? Because those markets are dying, coming out. And I'll give you an example. So let's go to DAT's volumes here. Let me refresh this. So let's look at Washington, 682 in, only 96 loads coming out. So when I see a really good rate going from anywhere in the country to Washington, that's close to $2 a mile, the first thing that I think of is, I wonder what the outbound looks like that it's justifying that rate. And boom, there it is. So we want to stay out of Washington, right? Let's look at Oregon. Oregon's 410 in, 81 out. So if you're in the Pacific Northwest, you're having a bad day coming out if you're relying on the DAT board, right? Let's look at Utah. Utah, 382 in, 81 out. I've got a truck going into Utah. So I got to figure that out. Am I going to go to the DAT board first? No. Am I going to go to 123 low board? Probably for some market rate and some market information. But more likely, I'm going to go to my broker relationships first. So that's the entire West Coast, right? We all know Wyoming, Montana don't have high outbound numbers. Now let's look at these are some really low numbers, depending on where you're at. But see, I recognize that just by looking at what the inbound to Washington rates are. And I was like, wow, they're paying really good to go out west. And it's tempting. If you're one of those money chasers, you're tempted to do that. Oh man, I got $5,000 to go to Washington. Yeah, but you're lucky to get, a buck a mile coming out. Or you got to create some kind of 2 or 3 step just to get back to, civilization. Basically east of I-35. So these are the things I look for. Right now, Ohio show more out than in, which is good. Oklahoma, not so much. Let's go up to Indiana, Illinois. Illinois is about even, and Indiana is about even. So the Midwest is waking up a little bit. Because for a while, their outbound rates were crappy. Let's look at Missouri. 826 in, 1110 out. So Missouri's a good spot. But let's look at Arkansas. 526 in, 680 out. Not bad. Let's look at Kansas. 364 in, 436 out. Not bad. Oklahoma is going to be the sleeper state. It's going to be the one that's going to be not too bad, not too good either. 528 in, 354 out. Now, Oklahoma is another one where the markets are different depending on where you're at. If you're in the Tulsa market, that taps into Missouri. If you're in the Oklahoma City market, you're on your own. If you're in the Ardmore market, that area, then you're probably tapping into Dallas. So if the Dallas market sucks, Oklahoma's going to suck. And especially Oklahoma City. So from Oklahoma City to Dallas is kind of a dead zone. From Oklahoma City to Tulsa, you're doing okay. Muskogee, Sapulpa, Henrietta, Pryor, that whole area. And then you have the Joplin market that you can tap into as well. So these are the things that I consider before I send a truck in. But sometimes you just got to book something to go and then just deal with the consequences. That's how most people go to Florida. Oh man, here's a great load paying $3,000 to go to Tampa. I'll just deal with, and then they get to Tampa and they're like, okay, what do I do now? And then they sit there for 2 days because they weren't prepared on what to do to come out. And that's my job, is I try to help drivers navigate that. As a one truck operation, you should be navigating that as well. Know what you're getting in, know what you're getting out. And some people don't book an inbound until they have an outbound. And so if I'm looking at a high dollar load going to Oregon, that might be a big challenge just to try to book ahead. And then some of these markets are last minute. Like they may show bad volumes today, but not for tomorrow, or vice versa. They'll show good volumes for today, but then tomorrow there's hardly anything, which shows me that that's a last minute market, right? Gary Cook, good morning. Thank you for your membership. Thanks to all the members. Jerome Jones, thank you. Bull of Wood says seen lots of trucks westbound, not so much eastbound, and now you know why. I've got a friend of mine that works for a company that does a lot of relays out of Amarillo there, and they're struggling to get trucks going back east. Their yard is filled with loads that came from the east because they're having trouble finding stuff that goes west to east to keep those trucks moving. So I hear stories like that. I talk to the drivers, and then I see the numbers on the load boards. And, let's go to 1, 2, 3 here real quick. Let's put this on van. Now, we have some external things that are going to affect our market as well. Number one is the war. And the rumors of war. Nice biblical, reference there. And how do people react to that? Right? You can sit there and speculate, well, this will create this, and this will do this, and this will do this. But it's not what it does there, it's how people react to it. And then you have fuel. That is a factor that could affect things. And then you've got the English speaking thing that's supposed to go into effect full on. And what kind of effects are those going to have? And someone theorized to me that's why their own low board type brokers that I listed earlier in this feed, that's why they're not budging, because they know that these people are desperate trying to get their trucks moving and not rely on the broker screening them for English proficiency. Because face it, if you're using a carrier that's using non-domicile CDLs, the odds of that truck being put out of service have just increased. And so you might be looking at rescuing a load from a way station. So that's having an effect on, let me go back here. That may have an effect on the market. Will it? We'll see, right? So these are the things that I'm always analyzing. And now I'm not sitting here brainstorming all the time. A lot of times I'm just trying to get a truck moving. And I'll peek at the market that the truck's going into just to see what I'm like. Like I might okay, I know if I put this truck in this market on the load boards, it looks bad, but I got a broker that sends me a list every day of loads coming out of the area. Like, for example, New Jersey. I got a broker that sends me an email every single day for loads coming out of New Jersey because that's their primary workplace. So if I'm looking at a really good rate going into New Jersey, then I will call this broker and said, hey, what are these paying? And then I have my backhaul, and I don't see those loads on a load board. FedEx Ground has a brokerage. Does anybody know that? They send us, I kid you not, I've shown it to people. They send us about 100 emails a day, like 10 on the hour, every hour from multiple agents. Do you ever see FedEx on a load board? No. Not the ones I use. And so there's a lot of brokers that are trying to avoid the load boards. And they're looking for the relationships. I'm getting a lot of RFP quotes. Hey, requests. Hey, we've got a drop in a customer out of, we're getting a lot of Michigan-based customers reaching out to us since we're a Michigan-based company. I'm getting a bunch of those emails. Meanwhile, Michigan's not looking so hot on the DAP board, at least. Here it's showing green. Keep reaching back for my coffee. So let's look at Missouri. Here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Here's two brokers. They've got two loads. One's going from Kansas City to Mira Loma, California, $1.10 a mile, $1,700. Right? The rate check's got it at $22.13 for 1,552 miles, 8,500 pounds. Then the second load from Venture Connect has O'Fallon, Missouri to Sumner, Washington. Look at that. $1.80 a mile, $1.79, rounded up. But it's still 1,000 less than what it can go for or what it has gone for. It's 15,000 pounds. Now, this is showing that California has more outbound than Sumner, Washington. For example, if I go to that board, California is showing 2,229 loads coming out, whereas Washington is only showing 96 out. So do you see how that works? And it takes a little bit of brain power to go, I wonder why that is. Because more than likely, you might be going from Washington to California just to get out of the West. Or you're going to take your hit from Washington to California, not Washington all the way back east. Boom, you just created a triangle. So let's say you do Missouri to Washington, you take the Sumner, Washington load, and then what you do is you go to market rates here, and let's do Sumner to LA. Sumner. Now let's do Sacramento first. If I could spell Sacramento. $0.98 a mile. Cargo sheet's got it at 13, but the range is anywhere from 494 to 961, and negotiation strength is low. In other words, you're going to take what you get. Why? Because there's only 90 loads coming out of there, right? And as you can see, there's 0 loads going from Sumner to Sacramento. Now, I would have to be getting killer rate out of California to take this kind of, like, I've never taken a load below a buck a mile. Never. Or to supplement the rate per mile, you might be taking a multiple stop load. Right? So if we go back to market rates here, well, no, let's go back to load availability. I got to reset it, demand. Let's go back to Missouri. Now this is showing 261 outbound, more out than in, 216 in. Here's another one, $1.75 going to San Diego. Well, let's see what's up with that. That's a lot higher than what it normally goes for. And so a lot of times when I see this, okay, it's still below my cost per day. But check this out. It's higher than it has been. And so you call on this and you find out, well, it's a drop trailer load, or the broker's got crappy credit, or it's got 18 stops, or it's a drop trailer at the shipper and it might take them 3 days to load you, so you don't know when you're actually going to deliver, right? Or this might be a push for the end of the quarter. This might be an anomaly, and then if you're at the right place because it just got posted a minute ago, you might be able to jump on this. But this is still below my cost per day, which means that whatever I get out of San Diego has got to pay above my rate per day, so I'm not losing money. Here's another one. Kansas City to Morristown, Tennessee. Usually you got above $2 a mile to go into Tennessee. Well, because Tennessee's market is so good right now, they're not paying to go in now. And here's one, McBride, Missouri to North Little Rock. Now, this is one that I would look at because, number one, it's no longer available. Too late. But what I was going to say was you click on that and you look at the Arkansas outbound and you look at Missouri outbound, and you should be getting good direction, good rate both directions. But then you're running the short game, and so you're constantly looking inside a smaller box. And boom, next thing you know, you're doing $800 a day, which is RateCheck's got this at $876, and you're making a consistent $800 a day versus the $400 a day you're getting going to California. Right? And so knowing this about both the Arkansas and Missouri market, as you can see, it's green both directions, right? It's almost the same outbound numbers. So boom, I'm going to, so there have been times where I got a truck that's anytime, anywhere, but we tend to I find those pockets, and we're doing these pockets in the short haul game. And we're staying on that. I wonder how many states will be enforcing English. I don't know. Hopefully all of them. And and what Asia Mai said in his video is that CDL schools are going to start doing like a whole section. A good CDL school should be teaching mapping. They should be teaching hours of service, and they should, now they're going to have to teach English. Can you imagine going to CDL school? The cat ran over the dog, on the school board, chalkboard, Sterling, there's a lot of loads out of Valdosta. Very funny, Sterling. I'm waiting on dispatch to call me now. So these maps are generally helpful, but they're not up to the minute. But it gives me a general idea. Iowa volumes are down, Minnesota volumes are down, Kansas volumes are down, Colorado volumes are down. So they're paying. I've been having trouble getting good rates going into Colorado. Arizona's cooled down a little bit. And that may change in the next, 3 days. But, So let's go back to our market conditions here. So with that little uptick in van that it's showing, that's some of the short game and also some of the stuff going out west. CDN, I've been talking about you. Good stuff. CDN, good morning, Steve. I am late. We won't hold that against you. So it went from 199 in May to 201 in June. So that's that volume increase a little bit that we were seeing. Also the rates in the Southeast coming up. So I can see that. Van has leveled off. Van hasn't grown in the last 3 months. I'm not van, flatbed, sorry. And reefers up and down, up and down, up and down. Right? It's hard to get 227 in March, 228 in April, 236 in May, and we're back down to 234 in June. And again, reefers also in that hot pocket type scenario. Because if we go back to 1, 2, 3 here, let's look at flatbed. Throwing step deck there. This is it right here. Even California is yellow now instead of green. And then, a lot of times, the all West Coast states are doing pretty good. But man, it is barren coming out here because all the freight came here from the ships. And I see it in the lumber prices. We just got the estimate for a carport. 10 years ago, that carport was $3,000 to rebuild. Now it's like $5,000. So, and then if we look at reefer, it's going to look like a checkerboard. It's going to be all over the place. Well, maybe not as much as it used to. But still, and it's kind of it's almost the polar opposite of what flatbed is. All the greens up here with sketchiness going on down south. Let's go back to our email. Top lane movers. Indy to Fort Worth has gone up. I've noticed that. Loads going into Dallas have been better paying, especially out of Missouri and Arkansas, but that's because they're not paying as well to come out. Green Screens is an AI platform. Virginia's Charlotte's been a good lane. Shannon's been running that. But then Kentucky to New Jersey has gone down a little bit. And then North Carolina, Atlanta has gone down a little bit. Volumes are currently in line with 2023, but below 24 levels. We're significantly tighter than 23 and 24. So that's good news there. Now, this is good news. Below is the ocean booking volume index for China to U.S. The takeaway here is that ocean bookings coming from China to U.S. has seen a dramatic increase since the first week of May. So that's good news because look at where we were at. And we're seeing the effects of that right now. Now, this is where fuel prices might be affected. %20 of fuel or of oil, crude oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz. And if that gets violent, if that gets dangerous, then there's going to be some problems. Now, supposedly we only get 5% of our oil from there, but we'll see. And people argue, well, we could drill here, blah, blah, blah. Trump's doing this and Biden did this and da. Doesn't matter. What's in front of you right now? Because let's say that this doesn't really affect us. Well, people are going to take advantage of the reaction that, oh, man, There was a hurricane, so all the refineries, blah, blah, blah. So oil's gone up, that kind of thing. When in reality, nothing really ever happened. That's what happens when you got speculative pricing. Chief Freight Hauler, good morning. Chucking for the hustle. Gary, this rule's for all states. It's being enforced federally, finally, to weed out these bad drivers running 5,000 miles a week. Yesterday, I was in Flint, Michigan. The consignee I was at I was the only English-speaking person there. I felt naked. West Coast freight is mostly contracted. Has never been friendly to spot market running. This is true. And yes, fuel is on its way down. Why? Because literally, I was watching Agenda Free TV, and he literally was talking about the attack in Qatar at the base and how the stock and oil market saw that as a de-escalation. And so he had to explain why. How's an attack a de-escalation? He had to kind of explain that. But then you turn around and CNN says one thing, and then Fox News says another, and you don't know what's up or down. All you know is what's the price on your fuel app, what's the price when you pull into the truck stop, what's the price at the truck stop across the interstate, that if you can see it from there, and then adjust accordingly. Because again, you have no control over fuel prices. You have no control of what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. You have no control of what the governments are doing, but you do have control of your fuel mileage. You do have control of somewhat of the loads that you book that helps you get the good fuel mileage. And if you're in the right contract, you have adjustments that you can do with fuel surcharge, things of that nature. Look at the things you can control. Certainly prefers agenda soak news. I'm hauling plants again this week. Almost messed up yesterday. 120 degrees and 737% humidity in the trailer. Yeah, dude, you got to be careful, man. You got to be careful, man. Shipper receiver also be following suit. I already ran into a few locations where it's being done, and drivers are getting kicked out if you can't have a conversation with them and won't load them. Yeah, I mean, if someone comes up to you and shows you their pickup number that they've written down sloppily on their thing, or they show you the phone, the screenshot from the rate con or the load assignment, and it's like Procter and Gamble. Procter and Gamble, they got to be able to tell you, hey, go to drop your trailer in door 100, and then unhook bobtail to this area over here, and then go inside and give them your pickup number, that kind of thing. And if you can't understand any of that, they're done with it. I had to use Google Translate one time. I was picking up at Procter and Gamble there in Wilmer, Texas. I had an orange trailer on my back. It was back then. So, and I like it took 10 minutes just to tell this guy, hey, drop your trailer indoor, whatever, and bobtail, and then reverse the order when you come back. Tried to push through and almost pushed too much. You have control of your emotions too. Trucking doesn't care about your feelings. DIY semi. That's true. And here's your chart for so Saudi Arabia gets their 40%. Let's see. The chart below shows which nations are shipping oil, not receiving, via the Strait of Hormuz, and which nations are the recipient source. So China will be affected more by the Strait of Hormuz stuff than the United States. Yeah, there is. It's below 5% actually. Class 8 truck orders for 24 and 25. They're down. Probably because there's an abundance of Like someone pointed out on Facebook where it's cheaper to buy another truck used than to fix the one that you got. So if you're looking at a $30,000 repair because of your transmission, but can go out and get another truck for 25, which direction do you go? Or you can pay 35 to fix your truck or 35 for another truck with a warranty. Which way are you going to go? And that's happening right now. Excellent, John. Good deal. John is kicking it. Plenty of time. And I'm going to have your next load booked by the end of the day today. We're going to struggle a little bit to get out of there, but we're going to make it. Dan's Trucking and Outdoors. Good morning, all. Time to renew my insurance. Any recommendations? Well, I would look at Great West. If you go with Progressive, just make sure that your brokers, if you're using brokers, can use Progressive. Gary says, yesterday coming through Michigan, I saw a lot of Canadian trucks. Has Trump made any deals with Canada? I don't know. Probably. T-Bone, what's up? Sunk cost fallacy. Repairs come more than value. Buy another truck. It's a disposable. That's the shame, right? Who's that guy? Schooner that has the 1967 with the big sleeper Peterbilt needle nose. He's rippled that things like 8 times, right? Put that guy in a new truck. It's probably like being in the space shuttle to him. He probably couldn't figure anything out. But he could probably work on everything himself if he can find the parts. I don't know how easy it is to find parts for a Peterbilt 1967 Peterbilt needle nose. Chief Freight says, when did Freightliner become a premium truck? They cost more than plastic Pete's. It's always been like that. When I bought my first truck, I wanted a Freightliner, to be honest with you. I wanted a Freightliner Cascadia. And so I went to Aero Trucks and they were like, yeah, those are 20% more. So the same amount of miles, same amount of age was $10,000 to $20,000 more than the Peterbilt 387 or the Internationals. And so I bought the Pete 387. So that's why they consider it a premium truck. And put a Detroit in that, and you're good to go, right? I don't have experience with the freight. Like the only Freightliner I drove was a 97 in CDL school, and then I drove a day cab for a day when we had to deliver this load. I was a company driver, and they rented a day cab for me to deliver this hazmat load that was sitting on a lot for too long. I'm not going to read all this because I just kind of explained this. Outbound tender reject index is at 5.8%. So we're not quite getting above 6. Van is at 5.7, flatbeds at 11.1, so that's decreased. And then reefers increased a little bit to 15.5. All right, so here's the market data. Global shipping and energy markets are on alert after Iran's parliament approved a measure to close the Strait of Hormuz following the U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. I don't know how up to date that news is. Oil markets opened higher Sunday evening, U.S. time, following the military strike on Iran, up roughly 2%. Freight rates to the Middle East surged up 154%. Well, since the weekend strikes on Iranian sites, shipping firms like Hapag-Lloyd and Maersk are adjusting operations while BIMCO warns of risks posed by missiles, drones, and sea mines. Marine insurance premiums have soared 60%. That's important. Virginia-based court awarded $458,000 in damages to Greenland Express for a freight guard report that was logged against it by a freight broker, High Plains Logistics. That might change the attitude of some brokers on their freight guard. Might change freight guard's approach to things too. National Motor Freight Traffic Association is planning to have changes go into effect for the National Motor Freight Classification on July 19th. These changes will fundamentally impact how freight is classified, rated, and billed. Review these changes here. U.S. tariff hikes on small packages from China triggered a slump in shipments last month, falling 40% year over year, with fashion titan Shein, I've never heard of that, and its rival Temu being impacted the most. Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel finalized a deal that involves a $15 billion buyout of the iconic American steelmaker and provides federal oversight on some matters. Class 8 truck sales dropped 5% year over year in May. Indictments were handed down by a California grand jury. Sorry. Against a gang of accused thieves who targeted trucks delivering everything from jewelry to electronics over several months in 22, totaling more than $100 million. Now, something that's not listed here, and Pale Rider talked about on his newly titled YouTube page. There was a guy, it was either Florida, I think it was Florida, where he was caught selling CDLs to migrants. CDL licenses to migrants. Over 1,000, right? And it was like $100 some odd thousand that the guy was into. So right now there's 1,000 people that bought their CDL that didn't go to a school. So, yeah, how's that for safety? Here's the important one. Senators Roger Marshall, Republican out of Kansas, or Representative of Kansas, John Brasso, Representative of Wyoming, and Cindy Hyde-Smith out of Mississippi introduced a Commercial Motor Vehicle English Proficiency Act on June 18th, mandating English language tests for new CDL applicants. Transport Topics released its 25 top 100 for hire campaign rankings. I'm not good at reading news. I'm sorry. And then, of course, here's another one. This will have an impact on capacity. July 13th through 19th will be Operation Safe Driver Week from the CVSA. In addition, it announced August 24th to 30th for its brake safety weeks. So you'll see a bump up in rates between the July 13th and through 19th, and then August at the end of August there. So, all right, let's go back to 1, 2, 3 low board. Let's see. Red Lady, good morning. I agree, Steve. New or used, you're paying. Fixing stuff is great, but also eats up your time. Maybe having 2 trucks is best. One truck can always keep making money while the other's in the shop. Good, bad idea. There are drivers that attempt that, and they fail because, number one, the insurance for keeping 2 trucks can get ridiculous. So if you're a single truck operation with your own authority, you've got 2 trucks, it shows your carrier is having 2 trucks. So that could be difficult. Provost has experience with that because he did have a backup truck. Mr. Charles also had a backup truck, but I think the second truck was never fixable. It's a good idea in theory, and that's what the mega carriers, that's where they win because they can do that. You go by the Werner or the U.S. Express yards there in Springfield, Ohio, and you'll see that they got spare trucks for days and days and days and days. And when there was a part shortage or DPF part shortage, they were able to cannibalize the trucks that were not able to move. And so that's where the advantage that a lot of mega carriers have is you have the spare trucks. I do know people that use that for as a they'll have spare trailers, which comes in handy for repowering. So there you go, cheap freight hauler helping Sterling out. T, yeah, I don't have English. I would fail an English proficiency test right now. All right, so Sterling's got a few funny comments there. But if it's doable and if it's realistic, then yeah, CDN, it's a good strategy. However, it can be difficult and it can be costly with the insurance. So it just depends on what kind of insurance deal you got. Now, if you're signed on with a company, then you can make that deal. Shannon technically, quote unquote, has a spare truck at times when there's nobody in the truck. And so she could do that, but it depends on who owns the truck, right? So my dog was having a bad dream. He was sitting there like, "Ooh." Find an insurance company that has a spare truck option for your policy. Having two trucks on my authority cost me an additional $3K a year back when I had a spare, which that would pay for itself if you had a breakdown that was like 2, 3, 4 weeks, right? And then you got to maintain two trucks at that point as well. Something else to think about. So if I had a spare truck, I would make it a non-DPF truck, I think. So, all right. So, anyways, I think we're going to end it here. It's been over an hour. I appreciate you guys' patience with me. Um, I know that I have not been good about going live here lately, but life gets in the way between dealing. I said this in the beginning, but dealing with all the trucks, make sure I don't have any empty trucks waiting on me to call them to get them a load. That's why I don't go live on those days. I'm trying to be better about recorded videos that don't include the dog, trucking related stuff, and I'll probably get into that a little bit better. And I appreciate the members and the support that you guys give. I really do appreciate it. If you want to try out the 123 low board for yourself, don't take my word for it. Use code 48065 and try it out for free for 30 days. The tools in and of itself have been worth it for me. You've got low board, you got the availability, you got the trip builder, you've got the profit calculator, you got a mileage calculator, which will tell you your tolls. And in my experience, they've been fairly accurate. If anything, they overestimate the tolls. So there you go. 123lowboard.com if you want to try it out. Also, if you have your own truck and you want to try running the spot market, or if you're not happy with your company, go to liketrucking.com. There's a link to an application there, and we'll have a conversation. If you have any email questions, snorelord@yahoo.com. You can email me anything you want. Tell me to F off. You can tell me, I'm awesome, whatever you want to do. And of course, ways to support the channel are below in that banner. So with that being said, thank you for watching. And hopefully we'll go live Friday. It depends on what my workload looks like. And we'll go from there. So with that being said, strength for today, hope for tomorrow. Peace.